John Wayne did not become an icon in one film. He was assembled piece by piece, and the very movies that made him look permanent also began to reveal what that myth was hiding. Today, we're counting down 10 films that built the Duke from breakthrough to farewell, sometimes heroic, sometimes wounded, sometimes far more complicated than the image suggests. Subscribe to the channel, because each stop on this list reveals another side of how John Wayne became an American screen legend.
At number 10, we have The Shootist. By 1976, Wayne wasn't just playing an aging gunman anymore, he was carrying the weight of an entire era on his shoulders. As J.B. books, he gives one of his most restrained performances, and that restraint is exactly why the film lands so hard. The story works as a farewell western, but it never feels like a gimmick. It feels earned. There's real dignity in the way the character tries to control the terms of his own ending, and that gives the movie its emotional power. Don Siegel directs it with a quiet sense of finality, and the cast around Wayne, Lauren Bacall, Ron Howard, James Stewart, adds an old Hollywood gravity that deepens the mood. Even the opening use of earlier Wayne footage helps close the circle between the myth audiences remembered and the mortal man now standing inside it. It's a modestly scaled film compared with some of the giants ahead, but as a final statement, it's deeply moving.
At number 9, Sands of Iwo Jima shows how Wayne's image expanded beyond the saddle and into post-war military toughness. Playing Sergeant John M. Stryker in 1949, he hardens his screen authority into something sterner, rougher, and more institutional. This wasn't just another hit, it was the role that brought him his first Oscar nomination, which tells you how strongly the performance registered at the time. What makes it important is that Stryker isn't simply a clean, patriotic symbol. He's difficult, severe, emotionally guarded, and Wayne plays that hardness without losing the audience completely. That balance helped lock in a whole side of his public image for years to come. It also proved he could carry national, wartime masculinity with the same conviction he brought to frontier myth. If you love these journeys through classic cinema, subscribe to the channel.
At number 8, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon gives us a quieter but essential John Wayne. Released the same year as Sands of Iwo Jima, this one moves in a very different register. As Captain Nathan Brittles, Wayne isn't the young force charging into legend. He's already carrying memory, duty, and the feeling of time passing. That's what makes the performance so valuable in his career. It deepens the cavalry image he built with John Ford, but it does so with melancholy rather than swagger. The film's Technicolor beauty and ceremonial feeling make it memorable, yet the real pull is Wayne playing age, routine, and reflective authority. He seems less like a man conquering the West than a man preparing to hand it over. That elegiac mood matters, because it's one of the first times the Wayne persona starts to show how lonely command can be. And from here, the list keeps moving toward films where that strain becomes even clearer.
At number 7, The Quiet Man reminds you how limiting it is to say John Wayne only played one kind of role. In this 1952 Ford picture, he trades frontier command for romance, comic frustration, and emotional damage. As Sean Thornton, Wayne still has strength, of course, but the tone is different, more embarrassed, more tender, more human. That change in temperature is exactly why the film matters. It broadened his image in a way many stars never manage. He could still fill the frame, but now he was doing it without a gun belt, leaning instead on charm, restraint, and that terrific chemistry with Maureen O'Hara. The Irish setting, the lush photography, and the famous fight scene all made the movie unforgettable. But the deeper value is what it reveals about Wayne himself as a screen presence. He could carry warmth just as powerfully as toughness. And once you see that, some of the later films start to feel richer too, because the man inside the myth becomes easier to recognize.
At number 6, True Grit is the late career triumph everyone remembers for a reason. Wayne's Rooster Cogburn is ragged, funny, blunt, and gloriously alive. By 1969, the Western was changing, and so was Hollywood. But this role let Wayne do something special. He looked battered without ever looking defeated. That gave the performance a fresh charge. Yes, this is the film that finally won him his only competitive Oscar, And yes, there was certainly a sense that the industry had long seen him as overdue. But the role works on its own terms too. He brings real comic bite, real physical distinctiveness, and an unexpectedly warm edge beneath all that gravel and swagger. The sparring with Kim Darby gives the movie its spark, and the whole picture reintroduced Wayne to audiences not just as an icon, but as an actor who could still surprise them. In a career built on standing tall, True Grit is one of the films that quietly asks what happens when the body gets older, but the will does not.
At number 5, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance may be the most revealing film in all of Wayne's career. By 1962, the old frontier certainty was fading, and John Ford turns that fading into the whole point of the story. Wayne's Tom Donovan is not just tough here, he's tragic. He's the hidden engine behind a public legend, the man who makes history possible and then gets written out of it. That's why the performance hits so deeply. Wayne plays him with restraint, with wounded pride, and with a sadness that doesn't need to announce itself. The black and white photography matters too. It strips away the postcard romance of the West and replaces it with memory, shadow, and sacrifice. This is the film where the John Wayne myth starts looking directly at itself and asking what it cost to build. And once that question enters the countdown, it changes everything above it. Because from here on out, we're no longer just watching a star. We're watching a legend being examined from the inside.
At number 4, Rio Bravo gives us Wayne at his most relaxed and rewatchable. If some of his greatest films reveal strain, this one reveals mastery without visible effort. As Sheriff John T. Chance in 1959, he doesn't have to push to dominate the screen. He simply occupies it. That ease is the magic. Howard Hawks builds the film around competence, rhythm, and ensemble chemistry, and Wayne becomes the stable center of it all. The dynamic with Dean Martin, the sparks with Angie Dickinson, the sense of a town held together by character rather than panic, that's what makes the movie feel so good to return to. Critics have long responded to that warmth, and Roger Ebert called it one of Wayne's best performances. That feels exactly right. Rio Bravo shows how charisma can become comfort, and comfort can become legacy. It's one of the clearest examples of Wayne not just as a hero, but as someone audiences simply liked being around. And that makes the heavier films above it hit even harder, because we've now seen just how effortless his authority could look when the burden wasn't crushing him.
At number 3, Red River is where John Wayne's image grows up. Stagecoach made him a star, but this 1948 Hawks epic proved he could do something more dangerous and more psychologically layered. As Thomas Dunson, Wayne isn't just heroic, he's authoritarian, wounded, stubborn, and at times frightening. That's the breakthrough inside the breakthrough. He allows authority to curdle into control, and control to start sounding like fear. Opposite Montgomery Clift, the film becomes a clash between old power and a newer kind of male presence, and that tension gives Wayne one of the richest acting opportunities of his career. This is the performance that seriously challenges the lazy idea that he only ever played himself. Reportedly, even John Ford later reacted with surprise at how strong Wayne was in it, though that famous quote should be treated as just that, a reported anecdote. What matters is what's on the screen. Red River lets Wayne become harsh, cornered, and finally vulnerable. And now the deeper pattern is impossible to miss. The strongest John Wayne films are often the ones that refuse to leave the myth uncomplicated. At number 2, The Searchers is the John Wayne performance that critics, historians, and movie lovers never stop circling back to. In 1956, Wayne and Ford took the frontier hero and made him profoundly unsettled. Ethan Edwards is commanding, yes, but he is also obsessive, lonely, and more intimate.
This is a man who may never be able to come home. And maybe that's the key to Wayne's greatest work. Beneath all that physical certainty, the best performances keep revealing distance, obsession, and exile. Subscribe to the channel if you want more classic star countdowns told this way, because there's only one film left, and it's the one that started the whole legend.
At number 1, Stagecoach is where John Wayne became John Wayne. Released in 1939, this was the breakthrough that lifted him out of lesser westerns and turned him into a true leading man. John Ford trusted him before the wider industry fully did, and that gamble changed movie history. Wayne's entrance remains one of the great star-making moments because the camera catches something larger than performance alone.
He doesn't just appear capable, he appears inevitable. That matters because Stagecoach didn't simply launch a career, it helped elevate the Western itself into more serious territory, and it established the Ford-Wayne partnership that would define American screen mythology for decades. What makes the film #1 isn't only influence, though the influence is enormous. It's the way you can already see the whole future inside it. The posture, the stillness, the clip delivery, the sense of authority that would later become darker, sadder, warmer, and more self-aware in the films we've just covered. This is the origin point. The myth begins here, before age, doubt, and sacrifice start writing themselves into the face.
And that's the turn that makes Wayne's filmography so much more interesting than the stereotype. The higher we climb, the less these movies feel like monuments, and the more they feel like chapters in a long story about authority, burden, and the lonely price of becoming a symbol. So what was John Wayne really hiding inside that towering image? Not weakness. Where? His greatest films show that the legend lasted because over time it learned to admit doubt, sacrifice, and finally, mortality.
Tell me your own top John Wayne film in the comments, and which one means the most to you personally. If you want more countdowns on classic stars and timeless movies, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.